Judge Boasberg, what's your impression?
I think that I would agree that the scales are not imbalanced to the extent that there are many practices that enable a defendant to even the scales. The government, of course, has to obtain an indictment through a grand jury process. They can't simply arrest someone or file a complaint. They actually have to get him indicted. And as an assistant United States attorney who dealt with grand juries on a regular basis, I believe that many are skeptical, that many are interested, particularly in the District of Columbia, in hearing a great deal about the facts and the law before voting to indict. Thank you very much. I'm also very honored to be here and would like to introduce my family. I'll start with my father, Kirsch Boasberg, who is here. My mother, Sally Boasberg, would very much like to be here. She's, however, in the hospital recovering from cancer surgery, but the good news is she is watching on the webcast, which is being engineered by my sister, Margaret, who is with her in the hospital, so they're watching now. My other sister, Melissa Boasberg, is here, and she's also representing my brother, Tom Boasberg, who has the job that now Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado formerly had as the superintendent of the public schools in Denver. I'd also like to mention my wife, Liddy Manson, who's here, and also my children, my son Daniel, and my twin daughters, Catherine and Annie. And as impressed as they are by this august proceeding, I think they're even more excited that they got out of school early.
Before the courtroom, before the case comes to the courtroom, whether there is a balance or fairness in the process, or whether there is more power on the government's side. So before the courtroom, before anyone comes before you, what is your impression of the process leading up to that? Judge Boasberg, what's your impression?
I think that I would agree that the scales are not imbalanced to the extent that there are many practices that enable a defendant to even the scales. The government, of course, has to obtain an indictment through a grand jury process. They can't simply arrest someone or file a complaint. They actually have to get him indicted. And as an assistant United States attorney who dealt with grand juries on a regular basis, I believe that many are skeptical, that many are interested, particularly in the District of Columbia, in hearing a great deal about the facts and the law before voting to indict. After indictment, there's broad discovery under Rule 16. There are Brady obligations the government must comply with, which, again, I took seriously as a prosecutor and, if confirmed, would enforce as a judge. And then, of course, there are motions to suppress, motions in limine, and other different pleadings that the defense can file so that by the time the case is actually queued up for trial, a great deal has occurred. And then if the playing field is not balanced at that point, it's the evidence that imbalances it rather than the procedures.
Judge Boasberg, my staff had a question prepared here which said you may or may not remember that I chaired your Senate nomination hearing a few years back, but you've already reminded me that you did, and that I gave a book to one of your children at that time. And it's certainly a pleasure to see you here today. You were confirmed after my hearing by a vote of 98-0. I wish you the same good luck in this undertaking. But I asked you at that time, in 2002, in your nomination hearing before the Committee on Governmental Affairs, about your thoughts on judicial temperament. Well, here we are 8 years later, and I'd like to know what you think about what you've seen in the courtroom and how important the temperament issue is when it comes to the administration of justice.
Thank you, Senator. I do remember well. In fact, the book that you gave my then 5-year-old son about Abraham Lincoln's top hat is in my briefcase today, although my now 14-year-old son, I think, is almost as tall as Abraham Lincoln without the hat. It's been something that's obviously been extremely important to me throughout my time. I can say that I've never flown off the handle and held anyone in criminal contempt in the 8+ years I've been a judge, and I think that judges who are best able to control their courtrooms are ones who don't threaten contempt all the time, and I can say that I haven't threatened it or issued any order of holding someone in criminal contempt in my time. I think that it's not always easy for any of us, particularly those who've had young children, to be as patient as we would like to be all the time. But I've certainly endeavored to do so, and have endeavored to cultivate such a reputation, and would hope to continue that if fortunate enough to be confirmed.